But just so we get into it, again, I'm associate professor of marketing. I'm Mark Staton. Please call me Mark. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, and I'm happy to do it. I got a second computer over here, so I can sort of see what's going on from your end. And I've got my notes on my iPad over here, so it's like got a lot of things going on. I've been teaching digital marketing since 2013, and I will say that and the other thing I've done is I've created this sort of home office studio, and so now I have this whiteboard wall, and I'm kind of excited about it. And I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt, kind of, and shorts. So what are you gonna do? All right, so we're gonna go over just some very basic topics today. The first one, what is digital marketing? Kind of an important thing to talk about. The second one we're gonna talk about is web analytics, which is sort of the key to understanding how digital marketing works. The third thing we're going to talk about is inbound marketing, which is one of the really great tools, excuse me, to sort of get your digital marketing success up and running. Then part of inbound marketing is social media. You guys have heard of that. We're also going to talk a little bit about search engine optimization. And then finally, we're going to talk about that old dinosaur of digital marketing, email marketing. So like I said, we're going to try and get this done pretty much on the quick side. But by all means, if anyone has any questions in terms of what they want to talk about, you know, outside of this, by all means, I'm pretty easy to find. All right, so when we talk about what is digital marketing, it took me a couple of years to figure that out. I basically taught the class for a couple of years, not really sort of understanding what is the best way to teach it. And over a couple of years, I sort of figured out that when someone talks about digital marketing, what they're really talking about is the specific tools that are available to increase traffic to your website. That's what digital marketing is about. And when we talk about, and we're going to go over the tools a little bit, but what's really important to understand is that there are millions of websites out in the world, but there's only about 4 categories of them. And so when we talk about that, what is digital marketing? We're really talking about the 4 categories. And so it's content, e-commerce, information, that's sometimes called something else, and lead generation. Oh, I'm getting to the end of my paint. So these are the 4 types of websites, and each of these websites, we'll go over some examples of them, but the important thing to think about is that all of them have very sort of specific KPIs. And a KPI is an example of what I refer to in digital marketing is lousy with TLAs. And TLA stands for 3-letter acronym. And so KPI stands for key performance indicator. That's basically the metric that you have that you need to really pay attention to see if you're being successful or not. I think there's a famous business person whose name I should remember, but I forgot, who said that if you want to manage something, you got to measure it. And so if you want to manage your digital marketing efforts, you really have to focus on these KPIs. So when we talk about content, what are we talking about is these are the websites that either create their own content or post user-generated content, and they're basically advertising based. And so you're seeing a lot more of these content websites going to a subscription model. For example, this blog I used to like called Deadspin got bought by some VC people, and they ruined the website, so everyone quit. And now they've created their own website, which launched today as a subscription model. So you're seeing a little bit of a shift to that. But the KPIs for a content website are things like the number of unique visitors, the average time on site. And so, the more time people spend on the site, the more advertising you can show, the more likely someone is to sort of keep a subscription. So, those are the metrics that people really care about if you have a content website. So an e-commerce website, y'all know those. Those are the websites where people buy stuff. And there are both B2C versions. You may have heard of this little company in Seattle called Amazon. That's a B2C, for the most part, a B2C e-commerce site. There's also a little shoe company in Portland called Nike that sells a lot of shoes on their app. And I spend way too much, don't tell my wife, I spend way too much time on that, or money rather. So, so those are examples of B2C. There's also B2B, business to business e-commerce websites. And so, and sometimes they're web only. Sometimes they're part of what marketers call omni-channel, which is that there's a web component as well as, you know, old school brick and mortar, and they all sort of work concurrently. And so the KPIs for for an e-commerce website, those are unique visitors, transactions, and so they're, you know, you know how many, you know, how much is sold at a given time. Those are the KPIs for that. Information sites, people don't really think about these, but they're still can be really important. Lots of organizations have these as a way so people can learn stuff like the address or their hours or you know, their mission or their business. If you look at it, you know, like probably the most highly trafficked website at CBE, on the CBE website, is the one that lists all the faculty and their offices and their office hours. And so that's an example of an information site. This is back when people had offices that were there. And so when we talk about KPIs for an information site, it's things like time on site, bounce rate. We'll talk about bounce rate in a little bit. But basically, like the more people are spending on the site, the less people are leaving. That means that they're getting the information that they want and the site is good. And then the last type of website that's really important is one that a lot of people don't think about, but if you go into digital marketing, you will most likely work, not most, you're very likely work on this. It's called a lead generation site. So for a lot of businesses that are on the web, they're not going to actually make a transaction on the website. They will give you a lot of information, and they will they'll teach you about you know everything you need to know about the business, sort of helping you get down what we call, and I'm going to show this a lot, the funnel. Marketers love to talk about the funnel. So awareness, interest, desire, action. So this is kind of what's referred to as the buying process. So what happens a lot is someone's able to do all of this on the web. People are able to do this on the website of the firm. But sometimes to actually make the purchase, you actually have to contact someone. And so that's what a lead generation website does, is it sort of pushes someone down the funnel and then allows you to then allows the firm to then contact the person to be able to sort of close the deal, as it were. So so when we talk about closing the deal, in digital marketing, it's not closing. I don't know, probably you guys haven't seen Glenn Ross, but like the sales guys, like ABC, always be closing. But when we talk about in terms of sales, we're talking about what are referred to as conversions. And for some time, and that's another really important thing to think about in terms of digital marketing. What is a conversion for your website? There's lots of instances when a conversion is not a sale. If you're a content website, a conversion might be having someone on the site for more than 5 minutes. If you're a nonprofit, it might be a conversion as someone actually making a phone call and to request your services. So whatever your conversion is, that's a really important thing to think about in terms of digital marketing. There's this old line that is probably apocryphal from the CEO of Wanamaker's department store in Chicago. It's like 100 years ago. And the guy said, I know 50% of my advertising works and 50% of my advertising doesn't work. Problem is I don't know which 50 is which. And that's the awesome thing about digital marketing, is that more than any other sort of form of marketing that we've had over the last, millennia, the digital marketing really allows us to see which of our efforts actually lead to conversions. And then we can put, those are the things that we can see have the higher return on investment. Hey, it's another TLA. And so really being able to figure that part out is really important. Can I screen share? Can you? Oh yeah, okay, cool. All right, so cool. All right, we're done the first thing. What is digital marketing and what are the different websites? And we talked a little bit about KPIs, we talked a little bit about conversions, but what's really important, and again, sort of getting back to this idea about how trackable digital marketing is, we have this thing called web analytics. And if there is one thing that I would recommend anyone who's interested in digital marketing to do after this class is to go to a little place that I like to call Google Analytics Academy. I'm going to share my screen. I always talk when I do the share screen thing. There we go. Okay, cool. Okay. All right.
Hi, I'm Justin Catroni.
And I'm Krista Staton.
We'll be the instructors for Google Analytics for Beginners, an online introductory course for those who have never used Google Analytics or need to brush up on some core topics.
We'll begin with what Google Analytics is and why it's important. We'll look at how to create an account and implement Google Analytics. And we'll discuss how to read basic reports, set up dashboards, track online conversions, and even perform basic analyses.
Google Analytics for Beginners will also provide access to a Google Analytics demo account with real e-commerce data, along with exercises to help you better understand analytics features.
While the course examples will focus on a website for an e-commerce store, the content is equally applicable to different kinds of businesses like online publishers, support sites, and lead generation sites.
Join us to learn the basics of Google Analytics by registering on Analytics Academy today.
All right, can you hear me again? Okay, cool. All right, so Google Analytics, if you just search Google Analytics Academy, there's a thing called the Google Analytics IQ, GAIQ exam, and I just forgot what the I is and the Q. But it asks you to do the Google Analytics Academy, or Google Analytics for Beginners, and then Advanced Google Analytics. And then there's this test. And basically, anyone who goes into digital marketing, if you're not Google Analytics certified, you have to that's the first thing they ask you to do. And like they said in the video, it sort of teaches you how to sort of the ins and outs of how Google Analytics works. Excuse me. So, sometimes I'm accused of being a bit of a name dropper. It's not my fault. I've had an interesting life and I've met a lot of people. I went to high school with that Justin Catroni guy, like the guy that's in the videos. He was a year behind me. He played, he's like this tall, and he played clarinet in the marching band. And now I'm like, hey, Justin, I teach digital marketing. Want to talk to my class? Crickets. He big times me. Google. So what do you learn in terms of Google Analytics? And the big thing that you learn in terms of web analytics is, hey, check it out. It's another 3-letter acronym, A, B, C. And as opposed to Glengarry Glen Ross, which was always be closing, ABC in web analytics is audience, behavior, and conversion. So what Google Analytics allows you to do is really figure out who your audience is and where they came from. That's not working. That's okay. It's sort of the where they came from, what they do on your website, and whether they achieve the conversion that you're looking for. So they mentioned in the video the getting access to what's called the demo account. And so it's a really good tool. And if you just search for Google Analytics demo account, so this is the demo account. And it's a really easy way to figure out how Google Analytics works. And so, and like I said, what you basically learn in terms of, when I say ABC, it really should be AABC, because the first thing you learn here is the audience. And you can learn some basic demographics of your website, of your website visitors. You can learn, their interests, where they're located, what type of sort of behavior they have, and then what technology they use. You can figure out, are they on Chrome versus Safari? Are they on mobile versus desktop? All these different things. And it's really good to sort of break down your audience like this, because it allows you to sort of figure out what's really going on. Maybe your conversions are slow or lower than you would like, and then you realize that your page loads really slowly in Safari, or doesn't look great, or doesn't load particularly well in on a Samsung Galaxy. So I think all that stuff is really helpful in terms of sort of the audience. The acquisition, when we talk about acquisition, this is where did the people come from to go to your website. And so generally speaking, when we talk about where people come from, sort of the main categories, when we talk about channels, organic search, that means that someone went and just looked up your, looked up a search term on Google, and then this organic search result led them to your website. Direct means someone just typed in the name of your website. Referral means that there was some sort of link from another website. Social means social media. Display means a banner ad. Affiliates is sort of a paid link, and then paid search is one of those Google search paid ads on the top there. So what you're seeing here, again, I'm going to minimize that right there. But if you look here, you see, how much traffic is coming, how many users are coming from sort of these top three. But the thing that's interesting is, for example, the bounce rate is much higher for organic search than direct or referral. The referral traffic seems to have more pages per session, as well as a longer time on site. So you're getting all this pretty cool stuff. That said, you're seeing that the revenue is higher from organic search than by a lot compared to these other ones. So you get some really good data in the acquisition report. And then the last, the behavior, this is what, which pages on your website are getting the most traffic. I probably should have said this before, but this demo account is actually what's referred to, it's the Google merchandise store. So if you wanted to buy a Google hat, this is where you would go. I don't know why you'd want to buy a Google hat. Everyone uses Google. But you can sort of see all the different things. You can see, things in terms of, site content. What are the, the page values of each page. You can see things like site speed, average page load time. This is interesting, looking at browsers. Whoa, Firefox. They're crappy. So, you can just see all these different things in this specific things. So, if you're a digital marketer who is not using Google Analytics, you're not really able to do the full digital marketing efforts, because you're not really seeing what's working and what's not working. And as you can see, Google Analytics gives a lot of really good data. And the other thing that's pretty amazing is it's free. So it's free to use, and it's also this Google Analytics Academy that I was telling you about. That is free for anyone to take the classes. Just to sort of, this is analytics.google.com/analytics/academy. Like I said, you do these 2 courses, and then you can do what's called the GAIQ. All right. Let's stop screen share. Okay, so we now understand how web analytics works. Well, understanding is a little much, but you've been introduced to how web analytics works. What are some ways to then get people to come to your website? And so what is a really important tool is what's referred to as inbound marketing. So if you think about it, marketing traditionally over the last couple of millennia has been more outbound marketing. You're walking down the street, or you're driving down the street and you see a billboard, and you're like, I don't care about getting plumbing services. This ad means nothing to me. But then you're watching the Seahawks game, and suddenly Marshawn Lynch shows up, and you're like, dude, Marshawn, I don't really care about the fact that you get paid by this plumbing company. But then something happens with your plumbing, and what do? You go to Google and you search up plumbers. And so that's an example of inbound marketing. It's really focusing your efforts on people who are in the sort of already looking for your product. They may not know who you are, but an important thing in terms of inbound marketing is thinking about, how do I attract people with the need that I fulfill? So it's not about someone, I think it's called Beacon Plumbing. Don't stop freaking, call Beacon. That was the thing I was thinking about. I guess the ads are good enough that I eventually thought of it. But instead of sort of spending money on that, you're actually spending money more on people who have the need for a plumber, and then they go and they contact you. So inbound marketing is really been promoted by a software company in outside Boston, which is where I'm from, called HubSpot. And so HubSpot does inbound marketing software for small to medium-sized businesses. And the thing that's really funny is, not only do they do inbound marketing software, but they use inbound marketing to promote their inbound marketing software. So it's this real sort of meta kind of like snake tail thing. But there's a lot of really good content on the HubSpot blog. And they also have a certificate program that I ask my students, I tell my students that they have to get certified in inbound marketing from HubSpot Academy. And so a lot of the things I'm going to talk about over the next approximately 8 minutes are from HubSpot. So HubSpot calls it inbound marketing, constant contact. They email people, they call it engagement marketing. But HubSpot is all about inbound is all about converting visitors into customers. And so the key is to think about a couple of things. And one is the fact that you don't want any of your messages to be interruptive. You don't want to have your messages like, hey, I'm just trying to watch the Seahawks game here. It's getting the message to the people when they are looking for the message. That's a big key of it. And then just trying to personalize it as much as you can. So when we talk about inbound marketing, there's sort of 4 steps. Where am I going to go? So step 1 is turn strangers into visitors. So when we talk about strangers, what we mean is someone who has no idea who you are, but has gone to Google or has gone to the web searching for the solution to a problem. And so if we do inbound marketing correctly, we can get those strangers to actually come to our website. That's what we're talking about in terms of turning strangers into visitors. Step 2 is turn the visitors into leads. Remember how I was talking about lead generation? So what happens once we get the people to come to our website, what generally happens is, imagine, again, like I said, they're not searching for our company or our brand from the jump. They're searching for some sort of need fulfillment. So it might be someone searching for best email marketing tools. And then on your website, you create a blog that happens to be called Best Email Marketing Tools. And so then those people visit your website, read the blog, think, oh, this is pretty cool. And then it'll say, if you would like to learn more, you can get our free 50-page ebook on email marketing. All you have to do is give us your email address. And so then that's when someone becomes a lead. I absolutely recommend anyone that's interested in this stuff, sign up for HubSpot Academy and do some of the courses there. They ask your name, they ask your company, they ask your company website, your email address, maybe your title. They will, if you fill out the forms, if you fill out those things, you will get the content. You will get the thing that they're promising. But by asking those different things, like they know who their business is, they're looking for small and medium-sized businesses. So if you said that you were Coca-Cola and you were the CEO, they'd be psyched. But you'd actually be fairly not. They wouldn't give you a particularly high lead score because you're not really the sort of the target that they're looking for. Similarly, you know, I always ask my students to just put your name in, say your profession is student, say the website is www.edu, put your edu website, email address. They'll send you the ebook, but they won't exactly bother you because they know that you're a student and you're not going to be buying their software anytime soon. So step 2 is turn visitors into leads. Step 3 is turn leads into customers. So how do you do that? You just do a good job of essentially explaining why you do what you do better than anybody else. What's really important is the content that gets you to the that turns the strangers into the visitors. That should be sort of informational. It should be informational content. It's not, you're not really selling at this point. Similarly, this visitor into leads, it should be informational, not promotional. Once you get to this stage, then you can start being like, hey, this is why we're better than everybody else. And that's when it gets more promotional. And then step 4 is, coincidentally, turn customers into promoters. And how do you do that? Pretty simple. Social media. We're going to talk about that in a second. So, the key to a good inbound marketing strategy is, first of all, coming up with really good content. The type of content that, number 1, someone is willing to give their email address for, so that they can become leads. And then number 2, content that is good enough that someone would potentially share that content with their social media networks, and then essentially it becomes this pinwheel effect where your customers are doing the promotion for you. I probably should be in here. This actually works a lot better. So we, again, like I was saying, the content that you're creating, this is going to be very informational. It's not promotional. The promotional stuff comes later. It's also the content that is tied into that next thing we're going to talk about after social media, which is SEO. The type of content that's sort of loaded with those keywords that people are looking for when they're at the top of the funnel trying to solve whatever issue they have at that particular moment. Any questions? I'm going fast, I know. I'm actually going too fast for myself. Any questions? Anyone? Cool. All right. So when we talk about social media, one of the things that I always say to my students is that social media in of itself is not anything particularly special. Social media is just another channel for your content. So, some brands, they do how-to videos on YouTube. Some people do, like Red Bull's all about like dudes jumping out of space. And a lot of the content is stuff that's posted on Twitter or on TikTok or on Snapchat or Facebook or LinkedIn. So it's just another channel that you can use to distribute your content. And so what type of content should you post on social media? The phrase we use a lot in digital marketing is what's called adjacent content. And so adjacent content is not the stuff that's necessarily, again, why you should buy our product. Adjacent content is the type of stuff that your target market would be interested in related to your product. I did some consulting work for a certain company that is headquartered in Bellingham, and they've got a windmill next to the airport, and I'm not going to say who they are. But I was talking to them about their digital marketing stuff and what they do for content, and they were just like, all the content that they've had on their website or on their blog was about why whatever thing that they built was better than the thing they built 6 months ago. And it was super boring. And I said, do you have any trade shows that are important for your industry? And they said, oh yeah, we've got this year. Oh, very excited. This year we've got the IJCE. I don't know, I just made it up. The IJCE conference is going to be in Indianapolis. It's a great time. Everyone has a great time there. I was like, okay, well, you should probably write some sort of thing on your blog that you would promote across your social channels about like a first-timer's guide to IJCE, or like best steakhouses in Indianapolis for IJCE. And they're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. But like that's what we're referring to when we talk about adjacent content. Generally speaking, when you're doing social media for a firm, we have what's called the ratio. For every 10 posts, 5 of them should be retweets. It's used Twitter talk. 5 of them should be sort of you promoting something that is relevant to your market. And of course, the nice thing is if you retweet someone, they'll retweet you. You get this sort of thing going. And so like literally half of your content should be reposts. 3 of them should be sort of educational content from yourself. Sort of like, again, that would be this like beginner's guide to the IJCE conference. And then 2 of them should be what we refer to as humanizing content. One of the things that's great about Snapchat as a social media platform, or IG stories since they ripped off Snapchat, is that the way to sort of do that sort of backstage look at a company. And so sharing content that way is a really good thing to do. But again, notice like that 5-3-2 thing I was telling you about: retweets, educational content, humanizing content. None of them are like 20% off now. We got a place for that. It's just not in social media. So what we're talking about here is what I refer to as organic social. This is the stuff that you just put on your feed. People see it. You're not paying anybody to see it. Dirty little secret right now is that if you were to post something on your corporate Facebook page and you've got 100 followers, on average, between 2 and 3 people would see it in their timeline. The social media platforms basically have realized that you or I are not going to pay to look at stuff on social media. So if they want to make money, they have to basically turn it into an advertising platform. And they realized, oh, what works really well is to basically create an algorithm that someone needs to pay to get their stuff to be seen by their followers. Some could call it extortion. I don't know. Seems like it's legal. But the so that's what's referred to as a boosted post. So if you have a corporate Instagram account, corporate Facebook account, a boosted post is going to increase the likelihood that one of your followers will see it. But then the other thing that's really important to think about is how do you grow your audience through paid social? And social media is really, really valuable because people spend so much more time on it than other, people spending more time on social than they are other sort of traditional ways of advertising. And so when we talk about social media, I'm trying to be quicker now. When we talk about social, the important things to think about are core, custom, and lookalike audiences. This is basically how you buy advertising or buy promotion on Facebook, but it's pretty similar on the other social media platforms as well. So a boosted post, like I said, that's when you make sure that more people that are organic followers of your firm see it. That's a boosted post. Core, custom, and lookalike audience is these 3 tools that they have that basically, that this is why Facebook and Instagram have gotten so big. A core audience buy is basically you saying, I would like to buy, let's just say, for example, middle-aged, bald college professors in Bellingham, Washington, who buy a lot of sneakers. So it's sort of like it's like a demographic buy. And so you don't have a real relationship with them. You just know that these are the types of people that are sort of our target market, and you can get really, really, really granular in terms of core audience. Custom audience is basically you as a digital marketer going to Facebook or Instagram or whatever and saying, hey, you know what, we got this phone number, we got this email address, find them. And a lot of times when you see what are referred to as remarketing ads, like when you look at something on an e-commerce website and then that suddenly shows up in your Instagram feed, that's not at all creepy. It's like hella creepy. But that's an example of what's called a custom audience, where you as the marketer gives the social media platform a little snippet of information, and then they're like, we got this person, and then they'll display the ad to them. And then the third one is called lookalike audience. And to sort of, one of my favorite jokes, to sort of paraphrase a joke from Saturday Night Live back in the 80s, is even if you're a 1 in a million kind of guy or a 1 in a million kind of gal, on Facebook, there's about 3,000 people exactly like you. So what lookalike is basically takes the custom audience and then says, okay, we got this email address for Mark Staton, display an ad to 1,000 other Mark Statons, and then they're able to do it. You know, there's a, you know, I don't want to get too political here, but I will say that, you know, a lot of what happens in digital marketing is actually sort of first discovered in political campaigns. A lot of people talked about how, you know, in 2008, Barack Obama had this sort of revolutionary campaign because he spent a lot more money on digital tools than in traditional TV, and that was really changing. One of the big reasons why Donald Trump got elected in 2016 was that his campaign spent hundreds of millions of dollars on lookalike audiences on Facebook. That they're like, hey, these are our 1,000 core people here. Find me 1 million just like these people, and you know, Facebook was able to do it. So so lookalike audience is really, really, really powerful. All right, so we talked about organic social, we talked about paid social. The next thing we're going to talk about is SEO. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. If you think about it, why is this important? Basically, the #1 result in a Google search engine listing gets about 18% of all the click-through traffic. 98% of the click-through traffic goes to the top 4. And so there are all these little things that if you understand how Google develops their search engine results, you're able to leverage that understanding and increase your, you know, where you are and what's referred to as page rank. So basically, you know, there's 2 main things that go into SEO. So the first thing, if you're hired to do some SEO work, is you do what's called a technical site audit. And so that's sort of looking really at the code of the website and figuring, you know, does every page have a static link? You know, is any content in something like Flash media, which can't get crawled by the search engines? You know, did you put alt attributes in the pictures? You know, you want to make sure that all the pages you can actually navigate to every page on your website. Some companies get lazy and make it that the only way you can get to a website is if you search, you know, you create a site and then it comes up on the search results. Internet search engine crawlers don't have fingers, so they can't type. So there are all these sort of little technical things. Like one of the things, like we were saying before, is site speed. And so if you do a good job of making sure that your page is coded correctly, that will improve, your search engine rankings. Additionally, there's the content that you have. And so, understanding what, like I was saying in terms of inbound marketing, understanding what are the keywords that people are searching for, and then creating content. You know, what are the keywords related to your business that that people search for, and creating content around that. That helps with your SEO as well. So there's sort of technical SEO, and then there's content-based SEO. And then the other thing to think about is really understanding how the Google algorithm works. And so, and basically the Google algorithm gets updated about 500 times a year. So it gets updated multiple times a day. And the main, it's pretty complicated, but it's not that complicated. The things that are really good for understanding what Google's really looking for is understanding what's referred to as the Panda update, or the Panda algorithm, and the Penguin algorithm. So there's all these different, and they're usually cutesy animals, but there's some other ones as well. But there's sort of like the overarching Google algorithm, and then there's sort of subcategories. The Panda algorithm is all about quality content. So if your website has bad punctuation, bad spelling, things like that, it will get reduced in its results in referring to the Panda update. The Penguin update, that's about the quality of the websites that link to your website. And so, the more high quality, high Panda websites that link to your website, the higher you're going to be in terms of your Penguin update. And so, there's a company in Seattle called Moz, M-O-Z, and they're not a search engine optimization company. Like you can work for a company that helps clients improve their search engine optimization. What Moz does is basically sort of reverse engineer the Google algorithm, and then you can see, oh, they did an update on Panda, and you can sort of improve X. Like you can sort of figure out why things have happened with Google through Moz. So we talked about, the first thing I said was you got to do the Google Analytics certification. Second thing I said was check out HubSpot Academy. The third thing you need to do is just go to Google and download the Moz's Beginner's Guide to SEO. It is literally the Magna Carta of digital marketing. It's been around forever. They update it all the time. If you read it, you'll understand how SEO works, and basically you'll get a job. Like you'll read that, and then magically they'll know that Google will know that you've downloaded it, and that's not exactly true. But reading that is a really good introduction to that as well. And so then Moz also has an awesome blog called the Moz blog, M-O-Z again. And so the founder of the company has all these videos called Whiteboard Fridays. It's actually how I got the idea of doing this whiteboard on my wall. I'm pretty sure that his whiteboard is a lot cleaner than mine. So, but there's a lot of really good content on Moz in terms of understanding search. And then related to that is also paid search. And so as you'll notice with a lot of search engine results, more and more of the sort of real estate is being taken over by the paid search results. And if you really want to think like hey, I'm so cool, I don't click on paid search. Google's about a $90 billion company, and literally like 88 billion of it is because of those paid search ads. So a lot of people do it. It's a big part of any sort of digital marketing campaign is paid search. And a lot of my former students, their first job in college is managing paid search campaigns. So there's a thing called Google Ads, and guess what? There's a Google Ads certification. And so you can get a real good understanding about how the bidding process works, how to improve your results, things like that. One of the things that's really interesting with Google Ads is it's not the person that bids the most that necessarily gets the highest ranking for a keyword. It's a combination of site quality. It's a combination of site quality, ad copy quality, and what you bid. So there's a lot of things that go into that. Okay, so final thing we're going to talk about is email marketing. A lot of people, think email. Who looks at email anymore? This thing is not cool at all. But actually, email marketing is really important because it's really cheap and it's really effective. And the other thing that's really important to think about is that a lot of the tools that we've talked about have been about customer acquisition, but there's no better tool for customer retention than email marketing. I don't know about you, but I have my separate email address from my work one that is for basically when I buy stuff on the internet, and everything in that Gmail is basically promotional emails from companies that I'd already bought stuff from. Because they know if someone's already bought something, they're much more likely to buy from you than someone who hasn't bought from you. So that's why email works really well. So what makes for a good a good email marketing campaign? Number one, step one. Build your list. Your email list should be, you don't buy an email list. You know, that's what people used to do back in the day. They just sort of like buy a list and then they'd spam people from that. You're not going to get any good conversions from that. You want to build a list. And so, you know, treat all your contacts with respect, get permission to send stuff, for you to send stuff before you start sending stuff to them. If you're a small business, like a retailer, hey, you know what, I always get a kick out of the fact that, you know, like Zoom Espressos, like put your email down here and you'll get a free cup of coffee on your birthday. Sign me up. So, you know, that works really well. You know, put up a sign up form on your website. If your goal is to drive traffic to your website, you know, create a newsletter, add sign up buttons to your emails because your emails might get forwarded, but just, you know, only send emails to people who have already an interest in your company. The second step is crafting the email. How long should an email be? Everyone says it's short. And, you know, in some ones, it is probably a good idea to be a short. But if it's a newsletter, you know, those things can be pretty long. If you're sending them to people who are really sort of passionate about your brand, those things can be on the longer side. I got to say, like, one of my favorite emails, promotional emails I would get is, I'm a member of the Pickford movie theater, back when people used to go to movie theaters. And I got super excited whenever I got the Pickford email, because it would say what times the movies were for the coming week. And they would send the email out before they put it on the website, so that, like, you kind of got the inside information before everybody else. And that email was really long. So, so it doesn't have to be short, even though people don't really look at emails as long as you'd like. Then when we talk about, like, crafting the email, obviously you want to have somebody open the email. And what generally is really important is making sure that your subject line is good. And a really good tool for digital marketing generally, but email marketing specifically, is called A/B testing. So that basically, before you do something big, you test a couple of variations for it and then go with the one that works. So one of the reasons why firms use things like MailChimp or Constant Contact is that they can actually take their big email list, create a couple of different subject lines, send those 2 or 3 variations out to a subset of the whole list, and then whichever one has the highest open rate, the Constant Contact will send the rest of the list that highest converting subject line. So, you know, that's, you know, really important thing. It has a big, you know, subject lines have a big impact in terms of open rate as well. Make sure that you're not sending it from, like, sales at the Pickford. You know, it should be like Meg at the Pickford. And so, you know, like, having an actual name is really important. Similarly, it's not that hard to do a little HTML so that instead of saying "Dear Member," it says "Dear Mark." You know, all those things make a difference in terms of the success of your email. The third step is deliverability. I'll just say deliverability, which means, like, is it actually getting into people's inboxes? And one of the things that's cool about something like Constant Contact or MailChimp is they don't want us to know this, but if someone sends 100 emails from MailChimp, it's much more likely to get into an inbox than if someone's going to send it 100 from their Outlook or their Gmail. Like, there's this weird, I don't know why it works, but that's the way it works. But you want to understand what's your bounce rate. And so a hard bounce is the email address doesn't work anymore. And then there's things like soft bounces where there was a server issue or something like that. And so that leads to my fourth step, which is tracking. So making sure that you look at the analytics for your email and you figure out, okay, what affects bounce rate, what affects open rate, what affects conversion rate, and just being totally iterative throughout your campaign. All right, it's now 12:58, and my voice is getting shot. So again, this is just a sort of a real sort of snippet of the stuff you can understand in terms of digital marketing. But the great thing that's cool about, the thing that's really cool about digital marketing, there's a lot of things that are really cool about digital marketing. But one is just how you have the opportunity to teach yourself. And there are a lot of really good resources out there. Thanks for your time. I'm happy to hang around if anyone's got any sort of specific questions, or if you want to email me. I'm a pretty easy guy to find. If you search Mark Staton in Google, there's 2 Mark Statons that come up. There's me, the professor at Western Washington University, and then the second one is this guy who sells alligator skinned cowboy boots in Louisiana. So send an email to me. And like a big part of me in digital marketing is making sure that from an SEO perspective, I'm above the alligator guy. And so last time I checked, he was ahead of me. It's really annoying. All right. Have a good day. Talk to you soon. Bye.
This was so great. Thank you so much, Mark.
My pleasure.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
This is just fantastic. For people that are building out their lists and, either startup enterprises or, whatever the reason, they're starting to really build a list at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
How might you recommend testing the quality of email content and delivery when you don't have a big set of folks to A/B test with?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's like one of the things I will say is when I do a whole day on A/B testing in the class, and one of the things that's important to understand is if you have a huge list, you can do things in terms of statistical significance and things like that. But if you don't have it, then just go with sort of directionally what makes the most sense. I hate to be flip about this, but if you're testing emails, you're not exactly trying to cure disease. So if you go in the wrong direction because you actually the data had more noise and signal, it's not the end of the world. But I always say just work with what you have, and if that email does, and also understand that just because something worked at one particular time, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to work that particular way. So I wish I had a better answer than that, but it's just basically like work with what you have.
I think also, that's super great. Where do you mentioned earlier, HubSpot, and then you talked about the Pickford. Are there a couple of other businesses that you might suggest following for ideas on user behavior that's helpful?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of these digital marketing companies, because they understand how digital works and how inbound works, they have all these cool learning platforms. So HubSpot, for example, like they have this unbelievable thing called HubSpot Academy, which is probably 25 different courses that you can get HubSpot certified in SEO, social media, email marketing, all these different things. And then you put your HubSpot inbound marketing certification on your LinkedIn, and then what do you know? You look cool. But then HubSpot gets all these sort of awareness from having done that. So a lot of companies do that. Like Google Analytics and Google Ads, their certification platforms are totally free and really valuable. HubSpot's really free, is totally free, really valuable. There's something called Hootsuite, which is a social media management platform. If you're a student of mine, you can get free access to their Hootsuite certification, but if you're not, it's $99. The Facebook has a really great certification program. It's a little more pricey, but I think that most but that said, in terms of free stuff, I would focus on Google Analytics, Google Ads, HubSpot, and then the resources on Moz. If you look at those three things regularly, you'll not only will you learn a lot, but you'll stay up to date. And one of the things I think that's really cool, another thing I think that's really cool about digital is that it's not how long you've been doing it, it's how up to date are you in your knowledge. So it's a much easier field for younger people to get into, because, frankly, if someone's my age and they're doing digital marketing, I was like, what's up with the old guy? So, so just keeping yourself up to date is really important.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions? Cool. Awesome. Thanks for your time, everybody. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.